and welcome to the first ever Kipper Snack podcast. First ever one. I'm Sean. I am the creator of Kipper Snack. It does mostly music stuff, but occasionally other stuff, like this. With me is Javi. Javi and I went to high school together. Javi was the first person I ever played an original song for. I was supposed to play a song for an English class, and I was going to do a cover, and I was like, Javi, should I do a cover or should I do this song I wrote yesterday? And he was like, you should absolutely do this song you wrote yesterday. And then I still did the cover because I was too scared. But anyways, I wanted to try doing this podcast because I want to talk to a bunch of different kinds of artists in Salt Lake City and a bunch of different kinds of people. And I felt the perfect first person to be here is Javi, because Javi is probably like my best friend and the first person to ever really push me off that ledge and just tell me to really just like embrace the creative spirit, I guess.
The homies at home can't see this, but I'm in tears right now. That was so beautiful. What an intro.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
God damn.
Javi technically doesn't play in Kipper Snack, but also does most of the time. Probably more than most other people, besides like Jackson.
It's just fun.
But anytime we need anybody to fill in or do anything, Javi's in it. And every time I try to coerce him to stay in it, but he never does.
I'm like the Kipper Snack sixth man. I ride the bench.
Yep. You started playing music like way before I did. Not like way before, but it was like a year or two, right? And you were like playing in like Provo and stuff, just like doing little things. Do you remember like the show, like the scene back then? Like it felt like no normal person went to like see bands.
Mm-hmm.
Like no regular human being would just like go see bands. That it was like only people who were into local music went to go watch local bands.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like the venues were like, yo, you got to sell tickets, bro. You got to do this, you got to do that, which some venues are still like that. But I just feel like now it's like before you'd have to be like, okay, I'm going to invite 20 of my friends and hopefully we play to 10 people today.
For sure.
You know, but now it's like we play Kilby Court, you invite 10 people, you'll still play to like 100 people because people just go.
People just want to see live music.
Yeah, and it's like, is it a lot of them, I feel like, who go to these things, and maybe it's like the boom of like, I'm like getting so ahead of myself.
It's like post-COVID stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's like when you shut everybody in and then suddenly it's like, wait, people are doing something cool in person and it's like a community thing. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think too, is like parts of it have become more of a community, where before it really did feel like it was like a bunch of strangers. Mm-hmm. And then like three groups of strangers would invite all of their friends, and then the crowd was just made up of like people's friends. Mm-hmm. But now it feels like you play on stage and you already know the person who's opening or the person who's headlining, or at least you know of them, or you know about them through someone else. Mm-hmm. I think maybe there's just more of a scene in Salt Lake, and we were going to Provo, and it was like sort of competitive.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. It feels like here it's less competitive, and it's like people just want to play together, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I want to play with Sun Hills because I like listening to them. Mm-hmm. I want to play with so-and-so because I just think they're really good. Yeah. You know? As opposed to, it used to feel like really competitive.
Yeah, it really did feel like really competitive. And I feel like back then there wasn't, and maybe I just didn't see it, but there really wasn't like a strong Salt Lake scene. It was like Provo, Valor, Provo, Valor, and then it was like all of a sudden Salt Lake started booming later from bands like, I feel like Blue Rain Boots and like Rit Momney and these people were like the first, not like the start of the Salt Lake scene because it's not true, but like the start of like the indie rock scene that is so big now, because the indie rock scene didn't used to be this big.
Yeah, and people who I talk to like at my job, because my job pulls in people from all over the country, just because they all share an interest in like rock climbing and shit. So most of the people I work with like Utah because of the climbing thing, but then also happen to like music. And they're surprised that it's indie here.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, yeah, where I'm from, it's like more of like the DIY scene is punk, you know? Oh, where I'm from, the DIY scene is like hip hop. It's not like indie.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's almost like a stereotype to play indie music in Salt Lake, you know?
Yeah, a lot of people, like, if you are like, yes, I play indie music, they're like, yeah, fucking course you do.
Yeah, you said you were in a band.
They're like, you just
here in Salt Lake.
Yeah, they're like,
and you look like you do.
You're like, your septum's pierced, bro. Shut the hell up. Like, I know you play indie. And then it's like, I bet you sing about smoking cigarettes and doing nothing else, and like, there's no real artistry to it.
Oh yeah.
But it's like, I mean, you could say that about every genre or whatever. Like, every musician is different, but like Utah, definitely like because every band that's made it out of Utah, or every artist for the most part, is like an indie artist. Like,
yeah, what a weird genre too.
I know. And
like, how do you describe it besides kind of like, it's like not rock because it's a little more laid back, I guess.
Yeah, it's like tapey. It's like tapey, dry drums. It's like all live instruments, which I think is so cool.
Yeah.
But then it's also like still pop in a way.
Yeah.
It's like live rock instrument. It's like soft rock with pop.
Dude,
I don't know.
The next generations are going to think we're so lame. They're gonna be like, oh, what the? You listen to indie, that slow, boring shit.
Dude, so many people like already feel that way.
Yeah.
You know? And like, I don't know.
There's something so beautiful about it though. And I think that I don't know, it's made me appreciate so many other kinds of music too. Yeah. Because it's never just like, you know, I don't know, Sprite. It's like Sprite cranberry.
It's like never just Sprite. Okay, but what indie artist is Sprite? Who is like the center?
Oh, whoa, that's a good question.
Is it Mac?
Is Mac Sprite?
Is Mac Sprite?
I feel like, yeah. Like, you won't turn one down, but like, you probably won't always seek it out. And then every now and then you're like, I got a hankering for some Sprite, dude. Well, I don't know.
It's like everybody who's like, fuck Sprite. That's like what you drink if you're Mormon or if you're sick.
Yeah.
But then at the same, but then you like have some Sprite, and you're like, this isn't that bad, but it's still not my
still
favorite
pretty good,
soda.
yeah.
I drink like IPAs and shit.
I'm a Diet Dr. Pepper guy.
Like
IPAs and shit. IPAs are like a white guy's pumpkin spice latte.
They really are. Like,
don't get me wrong though, because I like both of those drinks.
Yeah, that's
not all
true.
the time, but I mean, you know, they're popular for a reason.
Yeah, I feel like one of my flaws is that I get so salty when people hate things for being popular.
Yeah.
That like I intentionally like them even if they're
double
bad.
down.
I'm like,
oh my god.
Like people are like, I don't know. I feel like everything I like is like a kind of basic a little bit, but like also I just get so mad when people devalue something because it's so
other
valued.
People like it.
Yeah, it makes me so mad. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you just, I don't know. But I also kind of understand when something's overdone too. You know,
yeah.
when it's like, okay, we heard it once already, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it even feels that way with Mac. I'm like, okay, like
Yeah.
this 8 hour long album he just put out.
Yeah.
Me and my coworker tried to play it for the whole day. We were like, let's try and get through the whole album in a work day,
Uh-huh.
and we got like an hour in and we changed it because we are like, fuck, this is so
8
We
hours?
were like, this is so boring.
I heard about that, but I haven't even touched it cuz I was like that's too long.
Yeah. I feel like the artist in me like respects it because it's like it probably feels so good to like go through every single one of your like diss track things, like the things you make for fun, and then just like give it a purpose and be like, all right, your name is now, because all the names are like crazy, but like
Right.
they're like just random numbers and letters. Like your name is like G7483478 You're like, here you go.
Here you are.
Let me just polish this up and master it real quick, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that's kind of cool to like give purpose to all that. And it
I
probably
mean,
feels good.
it's probably just for him,
yeah, exactly.
you know, which is cool.
It's like what art is, I guess.
Sometimes there's this thing in the Bhagavad Gita where they say, you suffer when you're attached to the fruits of your labor. You should just labor out of love.
Yeah.
So it's like when you are expecting it to be anything, it's going to bring you down. Like, even if it's, I mean, maybe it beats your expectations, but for the most part, like, it's just going to make you, it brings you suffering because, I don't know, it sort of has life of its own, you know?
Yeah.
You put something out there and then it's like, all right, be free, you.
Do you feel like you've ever done that with any of your projects where you like, no matter what it is, like whether it's like rock climbing or like this new like meditation journey you're on or like music, like having this like expectation and then being like, oh, I'm doing this because it's going to be this and it's going to be this or something? Does that make sense? Like,
No. Well, not with the recent things because I guess like though it's taken a long time to sink in and I still need reminders, like lately those things are what make me happy. And so I go and do it to make myself happy. And if it happens to make me money or to have a sort of like effect, I guess you could call it karma, because karma is just like spiritual cause and effect. So like if it's karma is that it makes me money and it helps me pay rent, then that's dope. But I already won because I'm just doing it because it's fucking fun. So I don't know.
yeah.
So not with those things recently, and it's what I'm trying to do with music and art in general. But it's a little harder because it feels like the devil's in the details, you know? Like you sit there and you like, you know, like, I don't know. You're trying to fill in all the lines.
Yeah.
And then at that point, when you're finally sort of done, you look at this thing and you're like, oh, I hate you. Which is sad because, it should be like, okay, well, I did what I could. Let's see what this is gonna, let's see what happens, you know? Like, you should just, you know, not worry about that part. Just worry about the part that makes you happy, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like that's something that this year I like probably like almost a whole year ago now. It was like last summer that was like the turning point of like my life. I feel like it was like when I was doing sardines, it was like so organic and it was so like I'm doing this because it's fucking fun.
Dude, you
we
were
just
always smiling in sardines. You
And
were
then-
just like,
Yeah, it was so fun. And then, like, once things got, like, they didn't really get serious, but it seemed like we were at this stage. Like, when we went to LA and we were supposed to, like, make songs and, like, play these shows. And we were, like, at this stage where we were, like, okay, are we going to, like, hunker down and, like, figure this out? Or are we just going to keep going the way we are and whatnot? And I was, like, I think I was just, like, way too... had too big of an ego and just like so much like naiveness I don't know to me that I like stopped thinking about it in like a fun capacity, and like it was still so fun, but like the things that like were annoying were becoming the things that I was like, oh well, smart and mature musicians are the ones who like put the time into these things. When I was so wrong. Smart and mature musicians are the ones who put the time into just like having the fun things, and then as little time into the other things. And then, like, I remember, like, after Sardines stopped playing, and I was just like, all right, I'm just going to do this for fun again. And I started doing it for fun again. And then once we started gigging and stuff, I, like, fell into the same thing. And then for, like, 2 years, I feel like
it became about the numbers.
It became about the numbers, and it became about, like, oh, well, I am this musician. I'm like a musician. I'm going to go find a label, and I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to go do that. And then I was like, well, this song is cool, but like it needs to be more like this so people can do this to it, or like this and that and this and that. And then I feel like probably almost a year ago now, and I still fight this like all the time. I'm just like, I don't give a fuck anymore, you know? I'm like, I want to write this song, and if it's going to be slow and stupid, or like not stupid, just slow and like boring, if it feels good, I don't care. And then I'm like, but then I'm like, if this song is going to have like the most disgusting guitar solo and just like sound stupid, but like cool, and it's going to feel good, I don't care. Where like before it would be like, let me make something that like is going to sound good. It's going to sound good.
Something that'll sell.
And so I was like, it's going to sound good. It doesn't matter if it feels super good. It's got to sound good, because I was like, I want this to be like my job. But now I'm like, even if ever my music got to a point where I could like live off of it, you know, I would still want to work a job like 2 days a week. Just because it wouldn't be my job then, you know, like I have to go to work, and then I like go make coffee, you know what I mean?
I love that.
Instead of being like, I have to go to work, let me go to the studio, right. You know, it's like,
instead of it feeling like work.
Yeah. And I feel like that was like really, really hard for me. I had just like had to figure it out with like my ego and my like just everything with like my past, like figuring it out. I feel like I finally got to that point, and even still I'll like fight it randomly.
I think it's a balance, right? Like, because, I don't know. I think that I've done music just too loosely, like my whole life. So I'm almost like on the other end of the scale, where I'm like, okay, how many things could I, and it's probably not healthiest to think of it this way, but it's like, how much could I have accomplished if I just fucking like trained, like, you know? Hunker down. Yeah, exactly. Like have like the training montage. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do that because it's fun. Yeah. So it's like, I'm going to train because I want to be able to have even more fun. So it's like sort of, I guess I'm thinking of it in a way where it's like extended gratification, but it's not because I want everything to be like precise or exact. And not every note's going to land like right on beat, because I'm not a robot. So I just figure if I train really good, at least hopefully like I can have fun in more ways later on, I guess. But yeah, so that's one way where I feel like it's a balance, because looking back, I'm like, oh man, secretly I just wish, you know, I'd worked on all of my chops and like taken more lessons and gone and done more, you know.
But then I'm like the opposite, where I'm like, I wish I would have not given so much of a shit about that. I wish I wouldn't have put the time into the like Instagram and put the time into just like sitting there and like playing guitar. You know what I mean?
Doing it because it's fun.
Yeah.
I have a coworker who I won't name because why? But they told me that they grew up playing piano and that they played piano for like 11 years and they memorized this whole Beethoven thing, and that it was like 43 pages of sheet music.
Wow.
Yeah. And they were like, I just, after a while, couldn't keep up with it and stopped playing. And when I got back, I was so disappointed because I wasn't as good. Because I'm still working on this one. Because, Yeah, because she wasn't as good. She was kind of bummed about it, you know? Because music is one of those things, if you don't do it, you kind of lose it, you know?
Yeah.
You don't lose certain aspects, but you certainly lose, like, technique.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was disappointed in herself. And I was shocked. I was like, you played for 11 years. Like, if you have a keyboard, you should go home and just do it for you, you know?
Yeah.
Just play for an hour just because it would be super fun. And even though it's like hard or it won't sound like it used to, you know, after 15 minutes, like, I bet if she did it, she probably had a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I don't know, it's like hard. Music's hard because it's also like a skill sometimes. I mean, all art is like
Skillful.
yeah, like you have to have a certain level of skill to be able to express yourself. And I guess that's more subjective, but like be able to. Sorry, I'm like trying to fix this while I'm.
You're good.
But I just like. I don't know. It can be hard because there's sometimes where like I feel like I grinded guitar and I grinded production and I grinded these things, and then I'm like, I just don't do it anymore, you know? And then I'll be like, I need to do that again. I need to start like grinding this again. I need to start doing this again. And like, even now, like trying to do my newest tracks, I'm like, I spent so much time like learning how to produce and like, why am I not just producing it? Like, why am I trying to find somebody else to do it?
Uh-huh.
And then it's like on guitar, I'm like, I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to do that. I want to like know how to do this and know how to do that. And I'm like, why don't I just do it? Why don't I just learn it? Like I feel like I used to do that when I was like a teenager. Just be like, oh,
dude,
I
I've
wanna do
never
that.
seen somebody pick up more skills. Like you do it in like you treat like life like a video game. And it's kind of fucked up. It's only fucked up because you mine all this like XP. And I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? It's been 2 days. How did you do that? It's so crazy. But it's awesome. I've always admired you for that. So
Aw.
I don't know. I know that doesn't really
No.
yeah, it doesn't add to what you were saying really, but I don't know. What do you mean by do you wish you would do it again?
I don't know. Like I'll go through these. Like I feel like I go through these phases, and honestly, I'm gonna be like totally clear that I have like incredible ADHD, and I swear it's just a lot of times it's this. It's like if I really love something, I just
Yeah.
like fixate and I like hyper focus on it, and I'm like in hyper focus mode on that thing, and then I just like don't do anything else. I like. Well, like when guitar started working, because I remember like I started playing guitar and then it was probably like 3 weeks into guitar. I remember I was playing and my mom knocked on my door and she opened up the door. I was like, "What, Mom? God!" And she was like, "Sean, that sounds really good. It actually sounds like a song for the first time." And I was like, "Shut up, Mom!" Like you get all like bashful, you know.
Yeah.
But then inside, I'm like, "Yes,
Hell yeah.
but I just remember like after that moment, like I just got so like it was just bringing me so much like dopamine,
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of, and I was just
It was
like
satisfying.
fixate on it, and I would not go to school, and I would
yeah.
not go hang out with people. I would not
Dude.
sleep. I would not do anything. I would just
I remember that phase.
play guitar.
The fucking like 4 to 6 hour guitar sessions.
Dude.
Like, man, I wish I was in school again just so that I couldn't go. So I could
Just to
stay
play
home and play guitar. Yeah. Because that was so awesome. Like, I wouldn't do it any other way. I'm so
Right.
glad that happened because, yeah, you look up and, like, the sun's down, you know? Like, that's, oh, yeah, I can relate to that feeling. But you do that with everything.
Anything I get into. Dude, I'm like, my whole life, there's like a few constants in my whole life. Number one, I'm going to go in order of how long they've been in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Video games. I've been playing video games since I was like 2 years old. I love video games, and they always come in waves in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm into a video game, I'm like,
You try and get everyone to buy it.
I try to get everybody to buy it so I could talk to them about it. I pour like my whole heart and soul into the video game, and like I just
Yeah.
like 100% it. Like I have
And what an interesting art form too. I think video games are art, dude.
like the people creating them or playing them.
Creating them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Playing them is
Absolutely,
like
absolutely.
listening to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like, looking at it. I mean, that's art too. You don't really have art without the observer, I guess. Or do you? Whoa.
You do.
You do?
Art. I think art is expression first, observation second.
Expression first, observation second.
Yeah, like people.
Well, I mean,
people relate to the expression.
The artist observes it too, though.
Oh.
So it's like a chicken versus the chicken and egg thing.
That's true. I mean, but when you write a song, are you listening to it before you're writing it, or are you doing?
Sometimes.
Oh my.
Do you ever do that?
Yeah, you're like you can kind of hear it, and then you're like trying to find it.
Sometimes it just comes out.
That's true.
And then you're like, hello.
Mm-hmm. We're like
Yeah,
tracing
sorry.
off so bad. Okay, I want to say this out loud so we remember to come back to it, but I want you to think of like what the song you wrote the fastest was. Okay, but I'm going to go back to what I was saying.
Oh, I hate that question.
I would say, oh yeah, video games. So like when I got into, so like during COVID, when I got into like Call of Duty, dude, I always played Call of Duty as like a kid. 'Cause I grew up in Utah, and so, but then when COVID happened and Warzone came out and all these content creators were making Warzone things and Twitch streaming and tournaments and all this stuff, I was like, yep, that's gonna be my new path in life. And so I would just like grind. And I would watch like every YouTube video on like how to be incredible at Warzone, and like, dude,
Hell yeah.
I have like 16 days worth of hours in Warzone.
Whoa.
Because I just would grind it so hard. And I had so much fun playing it. And then I realized I was addicted and I had to delete it. And I haven't played it in like a year now. But
You're a year sober.
I'm a year sober from Call of
Warzone.
Duty. Dude, that shit's crazy. And then I remember like being like 15 or 14 before I found music. And I was like just into like YouTube gamer shit. And like my YouTube channel still has like 20 videos of me like playing video games and being like, hey guys, welcome to my Let's Play.
I need to see that shit.
I know. I was looking at them today and I was like, I should probably put these on private. But I just can't do it. I work so hard on those, you know?
Who cares? That's awesome.
And then I got into like anime, which is my second constant.
Oh.
Anime I've also found before music. And that's something that is like so basic of me, but also I just love it, and I don't know why I love it so much. But
Dude,
I go through
was
these
telling
phases.
Colt. Sorry, Colt. I've been doing that with your name, mixing your first and last name.
Holt.
Anyway, yeah, Holt. I was talking to Holt how anime inspired me to do like meditation growing up, and then how it like inspired me to do martial arts as a kid, and like like the training, and I don't know, I'm like all the cool shit that I do now, I'm like I owe it to anime because it was always so dope. Everything about it, I was like, that's amazing. Dude. I just want to be a ninja.
It's the best.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
Awesome.
I don't know why
no
it's
matter
so
what,
good.
it's like you can do it, and it's like not yet,
right? And it's just like I go through like phases of everything and I get so into it and I'm like, that's going to be my life. And anime was one of those where I was like, yeah, I'm just going to move to Japan. And like, then I like signed up for Japan class at school because we were the only school in all of Utah that had it for some reason. And I studied it for like 3 years. And I was like, I'm going to go to university so that I can go to Japan because you needed to go to university to get a visa back then. I don't know if you still do.
That's wild.
I don't
didn't
know
that.
And I just like go through these phases, and then like when it's music, I'm like into it. And that's the thing is, music's different because music is my whole always. Like that's something that like when I'm watching anime, I'm playing guitar. Like or like when I'm like playing video games in between Call of Duty matches, I'd pick up my guitar and I remember I'd be playing with my little cousin and I would like pick up my guitar in between and he'd be like, "That sounds really good, Sean." And I'm like,
You pick up your car?
I pick up my car. I pick up my guitar in between and I'm just like, he's like, "Wow, Sean, that sounds really good." I'm like, "Thanks." But
Thanks.
yeah, I don't know where I was going with this, but I think a lot of it has to do with like the ADHD thing where I like hyper focus on things that give me dopamine.
Yeah.
And I just like have a really hard time doing anything else. And that was like something that also happens in like a lot of other things in my life that is like it's like a really good pro, but it's also a really bad thing because like sometimes I'll do it with like people or like I'll focus on like a person. I'm like, "Oh, I love this person. I'm gonna like I'm like, hey, what's up? How's it going? Blah blah blah." And like I can't just leave him the fuck alone. Or like I'll like do that just with like unhealthy things, you know, where I'm like,
it sounds dangerous with like substances, if I'm being honest. But as much as I know you, I'm like like you rarely touch anything, you know.
Yeah, I don't
know, like a little weed from time to time. We have to cut that one out. It's cool.
I haven't smoked weed in a long time. And it was when I first met Colt, I smoked with him like 2 or 3 times. And then before that, I can't even remember. Like, I don't really smoke. I don't really drink that much. But I don't know. Substances just never really... Because for me, substances don't really bring me that like spike of dopamine for some reason. I feel like they're almost maybe it's because everything I've tried is a depressant. But like I don't know, I guess weed's not really a depressant, is it?
I don't know. Weed's weird.
Weed is weird. But I've never done like any sort of like coke or something like that like is like a upper or whatever.
Maybe don't even risk it.
I don't think I ever will. But even like Adderall though, like Adderall.
Well, that's true.
I never really.
Adderall is like lab grade speed.
Yeah, and like I haven't taken Adderall now in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Not because I'm telling myself not to, but because I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to feel like that right now.
For sure.
And then like I'll take it if I have something important to do or like I'm coding or something, you know. But like if I don't have anything important to do or like, so I remember Block Party was coming up and I was like, I'm not fucking taking Adderall for a Block Party. I don't want to be all robot-y.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't have anything to do.
I wouldn't be able to tell if you were on Adderall.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I felt like growing up you would never you couldn't tell when I was tripping.
Really?
I felt like you couldn't, and then I'd tell you and you're like, "What the?"
There was one time where you called me and you were like, "I'm in a tree." I was like, "What?"
I called it. I said I was in a dream.
You were in a tree.
In a tree.
And you were asking about. You were asking me. You were like, "Do you want to join?" What was it? It was something about birds. Do you want to join
my perch?
My perch. And then I picked you up.
Dude, I was tripping so hard that day.
You were like...
I was in a tree, and I was like, man, I'm just perched up here. You know what? I should ask Sean if he wants to join my perch. Dude, I was so high.
Aww.
Like, literally and actually.
Yeah.
Wait, those are the same shit, but that's an example of how high I was.
Dude, and I picked you up, and then I like looked over, and you were like, you had so many cuties, and I was like, why do you have those? And you were like, I read online that they make you trip harder.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then you line them all up on your legs.
Dude, I remember
like,
that
all
vividly.
the peels perfectly, and I like looked over, I was like, wow, that looks really good. And you were like, yep. And then I was like, so what do you want to do? And you were like, well, I don't really know. And I was like, well, I have to go to my family barbecue. I left my family barbecue to pick you up because you called me so many times.
Really?
Yeah. And so
That's
then
wild.
I was like, I have to go. I was like, I'll take you close to my family barbecue, but you cannot come back.
Yeah.
And then I remember I dropped you. You're like, well, you dropped me off at this tree, and I dropped you off at the tree with like the picnic tables in front of the DMV, like across from my house.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm gonna have Ben come pick you up later, and you're like, cool.
Cool.
And then I think Ben did eventually go.
So I felt so bad
Uh-huh.
because Ben came over to hang out with me, and he was stoked. He's like, Sean said you were tripping, and I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, cool. What are you doing? And I was like, I'm just hanging out. And I just laid on the ground and looked up at the sky. And Ben just sat down at the tree. And I look over and he's shivering.
Oh.
And I'm like, acid's weird because I feel like it raises your body temperature. I didn't feel anything. So I was just like laying there, not talking to Ben, having like this experience. And Ben is just shivering underneath the tree.
Poor guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't realize I called you a bunch.
Yeah. I remember I was like, because I
dude,
think you initially
I would
asked
get
me.
sober, and the next day I'm like, oh, fuck. I hope I didn't talk to anybody on the phone. Like, not over the phone,
Yeah.
but like texting. I'm like, I bet it was so weird. I bet I was so weird. But it never really was that weird, I guess. But
No. I feel like the only people you had the balls to call were like me, Maya, or Ben.
yeah,
You
pretty
know what I
much.
mean? And like we were all like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's doing that thing again.
Dude, that one time that Maya was like so high, would not stop calling me also to come over.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I like showed up and I was like, what is wrong?
Sean Mena, professional trip sitter.
I know. I've never even done it. I'm too scared.
Well, that's because you've seen us.
Maya's like throwing up.
Okay, yeah, well, that was weed, though.
That's true.
You know, honestly, yeah. Mushrooms, well, I don't know about mushrooms. Well, I do know about mushrooms. But in particular, I'd say both mushrooms and acid for me, because I would not advise anybody in the world to do those things. And growing up, when I first touched those substances, I was like, everybody should do this. Everybody in the world. But now I think it's up to your best judgment, and you never know what could happen. So just be careful, whoever is listening to this. But
don't do it. We don't advise it here at
just
the
don't do it.
Kipper Cast.
But I think
we've never done it either.
Yeah, this is all alleged, first of all. But I feel like you do it, and there's this moment that's like tough.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, but you have this other moment of pure absurdism, and you're like, yeah, nothing in the world matters though, so, and I'm probably Jesus. So it's all good. And then it's just like, and then it really is all good. It's just a good time.
Aw. I feel like I had something. Oh, you got to tell me what the fastest song you wrote was.
The fastest song I ever wrote. Honestly, I can't answer that question because I trash so many songs.
Yeah.
The fastest song I ever wrote, I probably wrote.
Mm-hmm. And then trash.
And then immediately never played it ever again.
Yeah.
Like, so I'd say the fastest song I still play that I wrote
Yeah.
would be probably Road Trippin'. Do you know that one?
Mm-mm.
It's the one that's like, let's hurry, we're so late.
Oh, yeah.
Da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, that one's good.
Thanks. I like that one. It's like one of the oldest ones I still play because I still like that one. I still feel like it's resonates with me the tiniest bit. So
that one is so good.
that's so hard about it, is that stuff doesn't always resonate with you that used to, or it never will like it did in that moment. And that's one thing I hate about art.
Yeah.
Or maybe it will, but it hasn't yet. Like in that moment when you first do it, it's like I feel like I won't connect to it ever again like that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I think that's like because you know so specifically what's triggered it, I guess. Not all the times do you know what your song is about or means when you write it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times you figure that out later, at least for me. But like whatever triggers it or whatever happens is so immediate and you're the only person who knows those things, you know? But for other people, it's like you listen to that and you're like, man, I'm living that right now, even if it's like
That's
not
so
even the same
true.
thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was listening to Alice Phoebe Lou's record the other day, and she has a song. I can't remember what it's called. Oh my God, what's it called? I can't remember what it's called. But I was listening to it, and I was like, this is exactly what I'm experiencing right now. I was like, this is my life right now. This is what I'm experiencing. And then like at the end of the song, she said it was like had something to do with like her mom or something. I was like, nope, not experiencing it anymore, but I'm going to pretend like I was,
Yeah.
you know? And like, cause it was something different that I was thinking about. And then
Dude.
I'm like, yeah, I'm experiencing this. And then she's probably never going to experience that exact specific feeling again, and the writing that song and all that. And honestly, she probably did like 4 or 5 years ago, but because she's such a big artist, she had to spend so much time recording it, so much time playlisting it, so much time just like sitting on it, you know?
For sure.
She probably, it wasn't a single, so she probably had to wait another year to release it after that or whatever. So, but
It's hard though, because then there's sometimes when you're like, I don't know. Have you ever written a song and you're like, I don't like this anymore because I don't feel that way anymore.
Yes, all
and
the
then
time.
I don't like feeling that way anymore, or like I don't agree with myself
You're like,
or how I used to feel.
Yeah, you're like, that's not relevant. That's not me anymore.
Yeah.
But it's what I once was.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to do that. Like, I remember with Sardines, I had so many songs about my breakup, you know? And then I was just like, after like 3 months, I was like, these songs are so fucking stupid. I'm like, I don't feel any of these things at
For
all.
sure.
You know? And it's like,
The old breakup song.
dude, and I'm thinking about that a lot because I have these songs that I write, and I honestly have legitimately thought, because I'm like making this album right now, that I want to put at the beginning like a disclaimer, being like, yo, if you live in my life and you think this song is about you, odds are it's probably not.
For sure.
Or I haven't realized that it is about you yet.
So whoops.
Or I felt it for 5 minutes that it took to like get this song together or write these lyrics.
Right.
And then now I don't even think about it or care, you know, because it's like I have so many songs that like every emotion is so goddamn temporary that I'm like.
Not to mention, I feel like it's when you paint, you know, sometimes, well, the colors don't match. If you're doing a still life, your fruit basket you're painting is going to look like a painting, right? So it's sort of exaggerated. And the same, I think, goes with music, too. Like, sometimes the feeling that you're trying to portray, the choice of words isn't like... Sometimes it's the words that are more attention-grabbing, you know?
Yeah.
Or because they rhyme, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, actually, I don't hate you.
Yeah.
It just rhymes with, hey, you.
But, dude, it's true. It's something I think about because I'm like, I get scared to hurt people because being an artist writing lyrics, so many times what you feel for like 5 minutes.
That was like a certain set. What I was thinking, because I tripped on allegedly at Block Party. And the whole, we're going to bleep this out. Do you have bleeping abilities?
And we're back.
So for those folks at home, Sean just showed me his lacerated finger. And it was gross.
Okay, I chopped my finger at work. Okay, here's the thing. I chopped my finger really bad at work. Luckily, it was after we closed. But I like covered it up in paper towels. And I look at Jacob, and Jacob's like new. Like, look at him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, holding my finger just like as hard as possible, covered in paper towels, because I didn't even really look at it too bad yet.
Ooh.
And I was just like, dude, I chopped my finger. And he was like, oh, are you okay? And I was like, I don't know how bad it is. So he's like counting money, and then he like looked at me and saw like how serious my demeanor was. And he was like, oh shit. And I was like, I don't know how bad it is. I was like, I think it's pretty bad though, just by all the blood. And then he was like,
if this is any indication.
yeah. Well, it was covered in like a whole roll of paper towels,
God
basically.
damn, yeah.
And then I was like, I was like, we got to look at it. And he was like, okay, let's look at it. And I like unwrapped it, and we looked at it, and we both go, ah! We just like start screaming. And then I was like, oh shit. He's like, oh my God, what do we do? What do we do? I was like, I don't know. And so then I called Sam first. Sam plays drums in Sun Hills and lives really close to my work. I called him, and he didn't answer. Shit. Because I was like, he's the closest person, you know. I was like, I'm going to bleed out and die.
Yeah.
I was just like in adrenaline mode, and I was like, okay, Keely works not too close. I called my dad, and I was like, hey, Dad, are you at work? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, no, don't worry about it. And he's like, what's wrong? And I was like, oh, I just cut myself a little bit, but it's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. And he was like, don't bleed too much, okay? Is it work? Is it work? Go to the ER if it's work. And I was like, it's okay. Everything's okay, Dad. And then I called Keely, and I was like, I chopped my whole finger off, Keely. I need you to come pick me up. And she was like, I'm coming right now. And I didn't tell her that I didn't actually chop my whole finger off. I only chopped like a sliver of the tip off.
For sure.
But it was like the most I've ever chopped off in my life of anything. And
I mean, it was a chunk.
and the thing is that it was like blue. Like when you got like blood that is so thick,
Yeah.
and like you can see that much flesh, that was when I was really scared. But I wasn't like scared. It was more just like, oh, this is like go to the doctor territory.
For sure.
You know? And so then
it takes a lot to get some people in there.
it takes a lot to get me in there.
Yeah.
I hate going to the
I
doctor.
haven't been to the doctor in like 10 years.
Dude.
But I'm going to go soon.
Really?
Fuck. In fact, I was supposed to go today.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Dude.
It's cool. It wasn't like an appointment or anything.
You gotta.
I just want to get some labs done.
Mm.
You know, you should know your blood type.
I don't know what my blood type is.
Yeah, but if it's a rare one, you kind of want to know about that.
Will they give me
And
money?
if you're, if someone you know needs blood, and you happen to have that kind of blood, and it's like an emergency, like you'll know, and you're prepared and shit, you know.
My greedy ass. Why do they give you money? You can't like save people's lives doing with that shit. God damn it. But yeah, I think I don't know. Going to the doctor is probably good.
Yeah,
but
probably.
I know because of my mom and her like cancer, I'm supposed to go really early. Like they gave me a certain number that I forgot.
You're supposed to die young?
No, I'm supposed to.
Well,
go.
you said I'm supposed to go.
Oh, sorry,
early.
I did not give a. I did not.
I was like,
context
what?
I'm supposed to go get my colonoscopy really early, and I'm supposed to because my mom's cancer started in her colon, but it spread from her colon to her lymph nodes to her brain to every part of her. But
it was just really aggressive.
But it started in the colon.
God damn.
So they're like, you got to go get your colonoscopy and all that, like, really early. And they gave me a number to go get it, but I don't remember. It was, like, 38 or something.
Is that really early? That's
yeah,
still a
because
ways away.
you're supposed to go at 50.
Oh.
But I think I'm probably going to go at 25 just because I want to go before I get off my dad's health insurance at 26.
Yeah, that's smart.
And then just in case, like, I struggle to get, like, good health insurance or something.
For
But
sure.
not that I wouldn't redo it later, but just because.
But still, why not?
Yeah.
If you
Why not go
if you
get a
have health
colonoscopy
yeah.
as a 25-year-old?
Yeah. What if they turn you away? They're like,
Dude,
no.
you're too little, bro.
Yeah.
I'm not too little. You must be this tall to get a colonoscopy. But yeah, so I'll probably go. And like all my siblings are way older than me, so they've all gotten like the blood work stuff and like done all that for
Hell
it.
yeah.
But it's crazy. I don't know. You never know what's gonna happen. My stepmom just got diagnosed with breast cancer,
Oh.
but I think she's gonna be okay, which is good.
Yeah, I
But-
hope so.
And she's like an ultra health fiend, so it's like you just never really know, like her whole life. And like she's
Dude, I was listening. This is relevant,
Mhm.
but I was listening to this podcast, and this guy was talking about how his friend died on a Peloton. And he's like, yeah, healthiest guy I knew, and he died on a Peloton. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't know that could happen. And then he's like, I'm really going to miss my friend Javier. And I was so freaked out. I was just driving and listening to a random
crying.
podcast. Yeah.
It's not gonna happen to me.
No. So I'm just going to stay away from Peloton.
Dude, somebody's gonna hit you up next week and be like, "Yo, Javi, I loved your meditation class. Do you want to come with me to my spin class?"
Yeah. Fuck no.
Dude, also, next week is the first weekend I don't work. Well, I
Yeah.
work Saturday, but I don't work Sunday, so I'm actually going to be able to come.
Oh, hell yeah.
I'm
I'm
so
stoked.
excited.
It's a good time.
I'm very excited.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at meditating, but I try so hard.
Dude, I tell a story that my teacher told me, and it's like being bad at meditation doesn't necessarily mean you're doing it wrong. Maybe I'll save the story for when you show up, but it's a good story, so I hope I remember.
Dude, what? Okay, I'm very curious, like, what your school for that was like.
Yeah,
And,
it was
like-
really simple. It was like a certification, so it wasn't like I did it over Zoom because you can meditate like from a distance, which was honestly really cool because there was like 100 other people that were doing it, and slowly some of them started to drop off because for whatever reason they couldn't meet the requirements for their certification. But you'd be on Zoom and you'd cheat and peek a little bit and you look and there's like 90 little squares, you know, everybody fucking just meditating all at once, you know, all over the world. Like there's a lady who was super old from New Zealand, and like there's a lady who was British. There's a guy in Mexico. So we're all on different time zones.
Yeah.
And all getting together at the same time, which for me was 8 a.m. And that was a struggle for me. Honestly.
I was about to say, that's so lucky.
I just don't, I can't get up very early. The earliest I can do is 10 for my meditation class that I teach. I'm still working on my man.
Like
But
3D.
but
Coca-Colas.
3 Cokes deep, yeah. But yeah, it was really cool, and it was like 100 hours requirement. So you had to have meditated for 100 hours in total.
Oh my god, I don't even think I've done that in my whole life.
I don't think most people, unless you're really into meditation, have done that. But it was awesome and really useful, and it really helped me cement my own practice. And I'm still working on it. Like I still struggle finding like the right time. Like usually I just do it before I leave my house or just as I'm getting back from work. And it's hard to find the time, but every time I find the time, I'm grateful for it, and it saves me time. Because if you sit down and meditate for 15 minutes, you're like, holy shit. And first of all, I do 15 minutes for the introduction class, but any longer than that too. Like 15 minutes, and sometimes you're like, I forgot to set my timer or something. Like it must have been like 45 minutes by now. It just stretches time out so long. So if you can carry that energy with you throughout your day, I feel like it's sort of, you make the best use of your time.
Yeah.
So it saves, I think I vouch that meditation saves you time. I think it really does.
Dude, I think that makes a perfect sense. What do you think is like the healthiest you've ever felt in your life? What were your habits during that time? And I don't know if you've like feel like you've even reached that yet, or like Give me like what you think you've been and like what your goals will be, I guess.
My health goals are entirely based on climbing.
Really?
Yeah, because climbing is like the best exercise I've ever found.
Really?
Because I just like, I'm at a level at climbing where I have to do other sorts of exercise so that my muscles from climbing, I'm not like super yoked or anything for any of you who
You're
are
pretty
listening
like
at home.
lean though. You're like
Yeah.
definitely not like a skinny white boy, you know?
But yeah, I'm at the point that my pulling muscles, if I don't do like antagonist exercise, my pulling muscles, antagonist means like the opposite. All of my pulling muscles would get way too strong and would start damaging my joints. So I have to do a lot of like pushing exercises, and then also different exercises that are like to sort of combat that, so that way the rest of my muscles grow at the same speed and everything stays balanced. So it's kind of weird, but anyway, so any exercise that I do in like a lifting setting is based on climbing too, because it's like either to be better at climbing, which is nice because I have a goal outside of just like lifting dumbbells and shit, which is cool too, but it's nice to have that other goal, or it's to prevent my body from hurting itself. So and I would say that right now is the healthiest I feel because of my sleep balance, because I've certainly done more like outrageous like exercise stuff, like even as a kid, like high school football is pretty intensive, honestly.
Dude, it's crazy.
Yeah, you do a lot of conditioning and shit, and so I was probably doing more shit at that time, but I don't know, my sleep balance, just like I feel probably the best I have, and I ride my bike to work, and that's my shit too. It just feels good because then I don't feel like I'm caught in traffic.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question, though. Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I feel like health wise, I've gone through very different like mentally or physically different things. I really want to be able to have both. But I feel like the healthiest I've ever been physically was when I feel like, so after my mom passed, I got like obviously very sad, like a normal person. But
For
I like
sure.
was very leaning into my crutches, like just like was really unhealthy, and I got like very overweight, and then I like realized that, and I didn't realize for so long somehow. Maybe I was just thinking about other things, but
When did you realize?
it was like Valentine's Day when I was still dating, you know. I like we took these photos together, and I was like, "Whoa, that's me."
No.
And I was like, "That's not me." And then I
What?
like after that, I like was cognitive of. I was like aware of it, but I didn't really put it in an action plan until probably that summer, close to that summer, because we were going to Puerto Rico, and I started like just eating better. Like I didn't really exercise. I was just like, I'm gonna start eating better, and then I lost probably like 15 to 20 pounds by just eating better. Like I was over
Wow.
200. Like I didn't realize how big I was, but I was over 200. And so I just started eating better. I got under 200 from just eating better.
Yeah.
And then I started running. I still run. I still walk. I walk every day no matter what. I run most days.
Walking is an awesome exercise.
Walking is more for my brain than it is for my body.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think the healthiest I ever been was when I was working in visual, not at sorry, nobody's gonna know what this means, but
Yeah, I know.
when
I know
me
what
and
you
Javi
mean.
worked together, and we worked at the coffee shop, the Nordstrom coffee shop, and then I transferred to visual from the coffee shop. But when I was working in visual, I was like, that was when I was like actually taking care of my body, and I was like exercising for real, for real. I've never really been a gym guy. I get way too bored, and I just like want to leave really bad. So I was just like hiking, running. I had like stuff for home workouts, and then eating really well.
That shit's more fun anyway.
So much more fun. And I was definitely like the healthiest I've ever been physically, but mentally not so good because I was so like focused on it, I think. Um, but I never did anything like unhealthy to make myself like thinner or anything, which
For
is
sure.
good. But
You were just preoccupied with it.
yeah, and I just like was going through like a big breakup and just like processing emotions that I pushed away from me to survive, I guess. But um that was like the healthiest I've ever been physically. And then mentally, the healthiest I've ever been was not too long ago when I was staying up with my dad because I was using the flip phone.
Yeah.
And I was using the flip phone, and all of my video games were put away in storage, not to like prove a point, but just because they had to be, because
Yeah.
I was like in between places. So all I ever did was read. I just read or
Oh.
played my acoustic guitar.
Oh man.
And I made this rule for myself. I wanted to get good at meditation
Yeah.
because I listened to the Duncan Trussell podcast.
Hell
But I
yeah.
wanted to get good at it. But I don't know if it's like, it's something I've had the hardest time. And I don't know if it's like a mental block I have. Probably is just a mental block. But I feel like ADHD also really makes it hard sometimes too.
Yeah.
Because I just have like 100 times more thoughts than everybody else.
Well, that's my goal with my class
Yeah.
is to make it accessible to everybody on our great big spectrum of brains.
Neurodivergent people,
Yeah,
autistic
it's
people.
hard, dude. And I set everybody up for failure because I do it at the park.
Yeah.
But I think that the whole
There's just
point,
so much happening.
dude, you're chilling there and somebody is screaming, like actually screaming. And then sometimes it's a kid and it makes sense and it's like a scream of joy.
Yeah.
And other times it's like not, and you're like, what was that? And then like somebody will walk past with just like blasting music, and a muscle car will drive behind you, and it's just like yeah. Or a little kid on his way to the playground will stop and just stare at the whole class.
That's so sweet, though.
But I set everybody up for failure, and it's because it's like, you know, ideally you would be in a monastery, right? And it would be like silent and just absolutely perfect. But that's just not the life that most of us live.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you can come do it here and we all keep each other accountable and support for each other, like it's hard, you know? But I don't know. I think people think that the point is to stop thinking. But that's not the point, at least not in the lineage that I teach or that I learned from and that teach from as well. But
I think that a romantic point of view of meditation is like turning your brain off and like being almost like being on a drug. You have like
for sure, bliss.
Yeah,
and
it's
all
like,
these
what?
like wow.
But then I feel like once I like actually read on it and like watched and like listened to people talk about it and watched videos on it, I was like, oh,
it's hard, and it's a lot like lifting weights because it's a muscle. And so you show up and it's like, it's a lot like lifting weights where the weights are frowning at you when you first show up to meditate or to lift weights. It feels like everything's against you.
Aww.
And I still have trouble, you know, getting on my cushion sometimes to meditate. Like, it doesn't go away. I'm never like, oh yeah, this is gonna be the best, so fun. Sometimes I actually do get that way, but only when I'm like, I know I really need this right now, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a muscle, and it's something that you sort of, it's a practice. That's why they call it a practice, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like over time you start to sort of get better at it, but it's still always hard. And if it wasn't always hard, it'd be pointless, right? Like,
yeah.
I just think that, yeah, it's interesting. It's just sort of something you have to experience, because you experience mindfulness and you're like, the whole point is to meet the present moment and not judge what's coming up. Because thinking is like breathing. It's a natural thing that happens, you know? You can't turn it completely off.
Yeah, absolutely. especially for me. Just kidding. Dude, like, I wanted to like try to find a way to describe what it's like to be in my brain for you.
Yeah.
So it's like you say one word and immediately. So okay, let's think. When you were like a kid, you know how you would do like brainstorming, where you would like write a word, and then you would like make a line, and then write another word you think of, and you like. Do you ever do those exercises as a kid?
Yeah.
Anytime you say a single word to me, so when we have a conversation or you talk to me, that happens subconsciously, but it happens in like hundreds. So like, you'll say like, say you say the word orange. I have just thought of like 150 words that have to do with oranges, and each one of those like relate to an experience or a memory I have, or like something I want.
That sounds exhausting.
It's crazy, bro. And so back to like, the last thing I'll say about like where I felt the most mentally healthy was I was meditating for sure, like most days that I could do it and like felt like I could do it. But what I would do is after work, I would go home and I would intentionally do nothing for 15 minutes. I was like, I'm not going to meditate, but I'm not going to read, but I'm not going to listen to music. I'm not going to do anything. And I would just sit on my floor. I would just do nothing for 15 minutes. And during that doing nothing, I would let my mind think whatever it wanted. And I would think about anything. And I wouldn't try to control it. I wouldn't think about breathing. I wouldn't think about anything. I was like, I'm just going to sit there and just fucking sit there and like do nothing. And that's something that I've like been doing again recently. And honestly, that is like the most healthy thing for my brain, because I feel like I have a lot of impulsiveness to me. But when I make myself sit there for 15 minutes, all of those things that I've been fighting to do impulsively all day, like sending a stupid text or like making something a big deal, or just like the negative impulsive parts. There's a lot of positive impulsive parts, but the negative impulsive parts that I think about all day that I don't do, that I hold myself back from. And sometimes I do them because I'm not perfect. But when I like sit with myself for 15 minutes and I think about those things, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool.
Dude,
throw them away.
Like, that's meditation. What the fuck are you talking about?
It's like meditation, but I'm just like,
yeah, I'm pretty sure. So that's not exactly how you do it in my lineage, but I'm pretty sure that's like perfect Zen meditation. Because I learned Tibetan meditation, but I think that's Zen. So,
dude, I have a book that I got at Savers called Tibetan Meditation and Yoga.
Yeah.
And that's like what started me on it. I'm going to show you the book. It's at my house.
Dude, no, yeah. Because that's what I've heard my teacher mention is that. So my meditation has 3 instructions. And I won't go into them. But he mentions
you have to go to his class to get into
that's
them.
That's right. Guys? Yeah, it's not for free. Okay?
Every Liberty Park for free Saturdays.
Yeah, it's not for free right now though. But yeah, dude, he would mention how even though our like lineage has 3 instructions, Zen lineage doesn't have any. They just have you sit down and they don't tell you anything. They don't tell you anything. You just show up. And they don't say anything to you. You just sit down.
Oh.
So you figure it all out by yourself. And it sounds like that's exactly what you were doing.
That's what I was doing, because I was like, fuck all these YouTube people telling me how to meditate and telling me how to do this and telling me how to do that. I'm such a YouTube fiend, bro.
Dude, me too.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah. I think that's like one of my biggest vices is specifically YouTube.
Same.
Yeah.
I could give up everything else but YouTube. I could give up anything else. Honestly, if somebody was like, Sean, you could never write a song again, or you could never have YouTube again, I would have to think about it.
No.
I would literally have to think about
it.
Like, I know, like, in my brain, my health-wise, I'd be like, oh, yeah, fuck YouTube, get it away from me.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
This feels way better.
Right.
But deep down in my subconscious, I'd be like, no! No!
Yeah. Another thing you made me think of, I've heard that philosophers in Greece would set aside time to do nothing.
Dude, it's so important.
Dude, boredom is a good friend you take for granted.
Boredom is the most important part of my life. I'm not even kidding. Okay, it's like the yin and the yang. It's like
You need the friction.
You need
it.
I need boredom to value stimulation.
Hell yeah.
And if I don't have boredom to value stimulation, I will be just like a zombie. Like I will just like I'd be like, all right, watching. I will literally be like on my phone, doom scrolling while having something on TV and eating something, and just like at the same time playing with Cowboy.
Yeah.
So it's just Cowboy's my cat. People I know.
People picturing a cowboy.
And today, I have a really hard time with days off. I always have, and I think I probably always will. I'm just becoming more okay with them. But today, after I had to go into work when I wasn't supposed to, just because we're in like a transition period, and I'm in charge of a lot of different things now. But anyways, I came home. I finally got home at like noon. And then when I texted you, I was like, "What time do you want to meet up?" You were like 8, and I was like, "Okay, that's only 8 hours from now." I was just like, because that's like all I had in my brain. I was like, that's what I'm doing today. I was like, I'm going to go to his meditation. I'm going to make food and we're going to go do the podcast. Mm-hmm. But then it was like, I didn't get to do any of that shit. And I'm not going to be able to do the podcast for 8 hours. So I just had to sit there and like, I immediately was like, I'm going to play Zelda. I'm going to watch anime.
You were listing things.
I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. And then I was like, wait, stop. It's like, just like
chill.
I was like, but before I did stop, I just like started doing things. And then I was like, why is nothing satisfying my craving? I'm like so freaked out, like watching anime. I'm like, I want to turn this off. And then I put on like a YouTube video. I'm like, I want to turn this off. I would do all these things. And so then I just like went on a walk for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I like came back and I was like, all right, I'm going to sit here 20 minutes
and not do anything.
I'm not gonna do shit. And like,
God damn.
For my brain, everybody has such different brains and such different needs and such different things.
Right.
But
There's
for
no
me,
cure-all.
And like as you're growing up, like you feel like you just learn these things, you know, over time. And yesterday I didn't do any of this. Yesterday was really a bad day for me, which is like everybody has bad days, but it was just like kind of a bad day yesterday. And I just like sent a bunch of texts I shouldn't have sent. Just like, was just like grumpy. Just like did a bunch of things that I didn't want to do. And like, I like went and bought food when I have so many groceries, you know?
Yeah.
And like, not because I wanted to, but just because I was grumpy, you know? But then today I was like, I'm not going to do that again. Anyways, that was all off track.
I like that. Thanks for sharing that. You made me think of like something that I had recently on like my mushroom trip. Allegedly, yeah. Dude, I looked over at Avery. This is still at Kilby Block Party, allegedly. But we were just sitting there for a while, and she was like, "Are you all right? Do you need something?" Because she knew what was going on. And I was like, "I'm good." But I said it kind of like as a question. She was like, "Do you need something?" And I was thinking of what I needed.
Yeah.
And I didn't need anything. I don't need one thing. And I got so frustrated. I was like, what the fuck? Because I could think of so many things that I wanted to reach for just out of like this like needing like stimulus, you know? And I had a LaCroix. And then that helps with like the hand to mouth like fixation from like, I like used to smoke cigarettes a lot. I don't smoke cigarettes a lot anymore. But I was like, I could go find a cigarette. I could go get a beer. I could go get some more food. or I could drink from my LaCroix. And even my LaCroix, I was looking at it and like keeping it away from my mouth because I didn't want it, but I felt like I needed something. And I realized that like having a physical body means that you're almost in constant need, or at least your brain, your physical brain makes you think that you're in constant need, because that's how they evolved. And that's how humans survived up to this point, right? So I made that realization, and I got kind of sad that being alive means that I am going to constantly be in search of something to fill this thing. Or hopefully I'm not, right? Like, I'm aware of it, so I'm not. But it's just like there's always going to be this part of me that's unsatisfied, because that's what it means to exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fucking weird when you when you notice it and you're like, "What the fuck?" Like, I'm frustrated. I don't want that. I don't want anything, you know?
It's like I don't want to always be wanting something.
Right.
And it's like I feel like as a kid you hear, for me personally, I like hear these songs about it. Or like I like that silly song by, it's not silly, I'm sorry, I don't mean it, but that song Love Yours by J. Cole, when he's like, "You always gonna want a better bitch than the one you have," and just like talking about like how he's always gonna want something, and he's like I feel like most people realize it with fame when you're like a famous person, but a lot of people like us just realize it as we age, that like there's always room to like...
The grass is always greener.
Yeah, you just like... It's like if you have time...
But it's not,
you have needs.
It's just grass, and any grass is good enough.
Right.
Is the thing. Like, and... Dude. I don't know. You can always keep looking for this thing to fill this void, but the void isn't real.
Yeah.
The void is something that your brain creates so that you continue to mine the world for resources, because that's what we used to need to do to survive. So now what we need to do to survive is figure out how to ignore, or maybe not ignore, but not have to succumb to this feeling of like being needy, I guess, or taking and taking and taking and taking.
Oh my God. I listened today on my walk, my 2-hour walk, to the Emma Chamberlain podcast. And she had a doctor on her podcast. And Keely sent this to me. She's like, "You got to listen to this. You got to listen to it." So I listened to it. And she talks, this doctor, is like really well known about like the human brain and like dopamine and all that. Excuse me. Sorry. But she like talks about how like we evolved from needing dopamine to do these things, and how from that evolution and money and all these things, we've evolved to create that dopamine, like to help people create that dopamine easier. So like she called it the age of indulgence, that we're in the age of indulgence. This is straight up a rip of Emma Chamberlain's podcast, so I'm not going to talk about this for too long, because you could just go listen to it and get a way better idea of it. But she just talks about how like we're in this age of indulgence, and we need to like reel it back a little in a way where like we understand that like everything we're doing right now in this like world of the internet and technology is like dopamine based, like whether that's like playing video games, watching anime, like those are the things I love, you know?
Yeah.
Or if it's like, you know, just like YouTube, Netflix.
We're just chasing something that doesn't exist.
Yeah, and when we have free time.
It's just so silly, because it's like, that's why everybody you meet, you ask how they are. They're like, "I'm good, pretty tired."
Yeah.
Everyone you talk to is like, "I'm a little tired, but I'm good."
And I think like we are so, like we crave this stimulus so much that like when we're at work, we don't get that stimulus. So like after the end of work, we're like, oh God, give me something.
Oh
Give me
yeah.
something.
You
You know,
binge.
you like binge after work, whether
Yeah.
it's like eating or it's
Uh-huh.
like YouTube or it's Netflix or like,
For me, it was eating, and in fact, I've given myself like a boundary where I can't eat past 8.
oh,
Because if I eat,
yeah.
because I work kind of late. Some of you are like, that's kind of late, but yeah, I'm not. I set this boundary for myself because if I eat past 8, I'm like already really hungry, and I also crave that stimulus, and I
Yeah.
overeat, and I don't know. Then I just feel like shit and stay up too late because my tummy's digesting.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, please continue.
I don't know. I was just saying that like we just get so abnormally used to this like stimulus.
You know what's supposed to be good for um like a dopamine cleanse? Cold plunges.
Cold plunges?
Yeah.
Oh, like ice baths and shit.
Yeah.
Dude, I think I told you this about Keely's apartment, how her hot water broke,
Oh yeah.
and I was like staying there pretty
Yeah,
much
I
every
think you
day.
mentioned this.
Dude, I was taking cold showers every day for like 4 months. And that was also when my brain was like the healthiest I've ever been.
Dude, it's supposed to do a lot of good shit for you, especially with inflammation. And I don't know the science behind it, so this is like bro science.
Bro science.
Yeah.
This is like I like it science.
Yeah, but I've heard that it like breaks a blood barrier in your brain, so it helps you flush out like toxins and stuff too. But yeah, that's just bro science.
Shut up, bro science. I think, and also my hair, 10 out of 10.
Oh yeah.
Hair loves cold water.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another question. And this is a question that I want to ask every single person who ever comes on this podcast in my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Is what is this includes like your job and where you live
Mm-hmm.
and like what your life is like. I want to know what your like ideal life is. And obviously that's so subjective, it's always going to change, but like as of right now, like if you are, say you're in your 30s, late 30s, almost 40s, like what is your ideal life? Like what are you doing?
Art for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm doing almost exactly what I'm doing now,
Mm-hmm.
but with more control over my own schedule, because that's something that I don't have right now necessarily, because I've got like a day job.
Yeah.
But I want to still be riding my bike to quote unquote work. I want to still be writing songs and playing them for people. I want to still be teaching meditation. I want to still be, but I want art to be one of the bigger chunks of my life. Like whether it's like, you know, big murals and massive oil paintings and songs and collaborations, but art. Like I want it to be that I spend more of my time creating something that is either like tangible and you can touch and has a purpose in that way, or something that is like social and like a movement, like a change, a shift, or like I don't know, like Carter and Chess Club. I love Chess Club. I love going.
It's so fun.
It's so fucking fun and seeing the same people all the time. Like something that affects the community around me and does something like that as well. So I just want to continue to create as my life and just get better at those things and be making more of that stuff. Like regardless of what the money situation looks like, I don't know. We all have to make our bread somehow, right? But I don't know. I don't ever want that to be the leading thing, not the reason. It might be something that influences one choice over another, but only because more money means I get to create more stuff. So that's the only reason, because more money means I get to do even more stuff.
Yeah.
I think that people think that they can't learn anything new, and I think people think that they can't do anything different with their life. And I think that that is such a mistake, because even if you have one day left, if you can spend it doing what you love doing, then it's like, you know, what else could you ask for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Aw.
Thanks.
What in to like but something that like I guess like when it comes to like your job or something like that, like you said, we all got to make the bread, we all got to like some things that like we just don't have enough power as individuals to change. And I guess this is subjective, but like
Sure.
we need to live like the a standard healthy life, I guess. We need like an income.
Mm-hmm.
How big or small that is like sorry, how big or small that
Sure.
is like up to you, right? Or whatever, but like you need like an income and you're gonna like be somewhere. What are those two things gonna be for you? What are like right now? Like obviously this is gonna change one day, you know.
Yeah,
like
like
what you
more than
want.
likely, this is probably not going to be it.
Yeah, like because like
Exact.
when you're in your 30s, you're gonna want something different, you know. But
For
like
sure.
right now, what are those things?
Income and what?
Location.
Location.
Like what are the things? Like where do you want to live and what do you want to be doing, like for your livelihood?
I want to be teaching.
Hmm.
I don't know. I want to pick up even more certifications,
Yeah.
like a Wim Hof certification, maybe a yoga certification later on. Group up with other people who do similar things, and like, I don't know. It's so fun. I love to talk, and I love to rant and to like explain things, you know. So they get paid for that, and not to mention meditation is mostly sitting, so they get paid to sit, you know. But to put effort into something that also helps other people, you know. So for now, I'm gonna say that as far as income, but also music as a passive income, and yeah, art. But I think, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Art,
That's
sort
all
of like
great.
merch, that sort of thing. That's a hard
Javier
question.
Barajas.
Yeah. Shirts that just say Javi.
Where are you gonna be?
Where am I going to be? I don't know.
Doesn't matter too much.
Not really. I love Salt Lake a
Yeah.
lot. Like, I think this place is so fun. But I want to live somewhere else just to see what it's like, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I like it here. It's kind of weird.
That's not weird. That's cool.
I think it's weird. It's just growing up where I grew up, like, I don't know, Park City and then Heber. There was like a lot of homophobia and racism and sexism, and it's sad, you know, because the people who were ignorant on these topics like weren't necessarily bad people, but it's just like being somebody who didn't fit in the same cookie cutter mold as everybody else. Just like there was like a dull pain, a dull discomfort of just existing around people who I didn't feel similar to in any way. And here, I don't really feel similar to that many people either. But I feel like I can relate to everybody, and people don't give a fuck what I'm doing or what I look like or who I am.
Yeah.
And I love that shit, you know? And then it's also like small, big town,
Yeah.
which is weird, you know? Small lake city. You can go anywhere and you bump into somebody you know.
Yeah.
And I like that too, because it's like the small town vibe without the racism and sexism and homophobia. And maybe not all small towns are like that, but and that wasn't always the case where I'm from either.
Yeah.
But it was the case some of the time, and it's just uncomfortable. So I'm like really grateful to live here because it's pretty fun.
Mm-hmm. Before we like finish, I do want to ask you another thing based on what you just said, because you were talking about like not being like not fitting in, but also like fitting in. Something that I feel like I personally experience a lot is like, and I didn't realize this until like a couple years ago, but like, do you feel that like being like a Hispanic person makes like, do you feel like you don't fit in either category, if that makes sense, as like a Hispanic person?
Absolutely.
Because we're like,
I'm Mexican and growing up, so my mom says that the TV taught me English. And so when I got into kindergarten and first grade, I didn't have to go to ESL classes.
yeah,
English is my second language, but I didn't have to learn it at school. And so all of the Hispanic kids were friends because they went to the ESL class.
yeah,
And then all of the white kids, without really meaning to, I think, like just grouped me up with them. And I feel like everybody forgot about me. So I was like, wait, I just sort of had sort of friends, but I wasn't in with either like clique, I guess.
Yeah.
As a little kid.
And even like as an adult, do you still feel that sometimes where you're like, I
have to push myself to speak Spanish, and it makes me sad because it was my first language, you know? So, but I always do. And I'm always glad, but deep down, I'm like, you're going to forget a vital word as you're talking to this person, and they're going to make fun of you and hate you and not accept you. And that's just a subconscious thing, I guess.
and
but
that's like never actually happened.
No, everybody I've talked to in Spanish is always so nice and dope and like, yeah. So it's just interesting.
Dude.
We should finish the podcast in Spanish.
We're only speaking. No. I was like thinking, because I feel like when I was working at Nordstrom, I feel like Nordstrom was a really pivotal point of my life. But I was like working in visual, and I was like making outfits and doing these things, and I was just like holy shit, I don't fit into any of these clothes because of like my body type. You know, like they don't fit me how they're supposed to fit me. And like all of the like my whole outfit right now is Dickies because like workwear shit is like designed for like Latin people and their bodies, you know? So like my whole life I've always worn like Carhartt and Dickies and stuff. And like I put on a pair of Levi's and I can't wear them because they look so stupid on my legs. Like they're either too long or they don't go over my ass or my thighs. And it's like, and anyways, I was like thinking about that, and then I was like, I feel like with like all of my friends growing up, like I have this friend who I grew up with since I was in kindergarten. Like his dad would always say like kind of racist things to me, but I didn't really get them because I was a kid,
like
you know?
Microaggressions.
Yeah, but like my parents raised me like I was a white kid on purpose, you know?
Yeah.
Both of them are ESL. My mom's from Puerto Rico, my dad's from Cuba. They both raised me like I was a white kid, and they intentionally only spoke English in the house.
Wow.
And like they did that for us to not face like discrimination, because my mom actually like took a bunch of people to court and like faced an absurd, and both of them faced so much discrimination and like so much crazy things, you know? And so like growing up, all of my family, like my cousins are ESL, most of them except for like 4 of them. They're like all ESL. They grew up in Puerto Rico. They like have very Hispanic names that like I feel almost awkward pronouncing when they're like my family, you know? And then I'm like, I feel like I have like this disconnect of like my Hispanic heritage because my mom wanted me to be white. But then I have this disconnect with all my white friends because I can't change the fact that I'm like Hispanic, you know? And then it's like I have like just like certain things that I can't really think of off the top of my head. Yeah, mannerisms and just like words I say. And if I get too like passionate about talking or I start talking loud, I say things just like so weird, like in English, because that's my mom and my dad. My dad, not so much, but my mom definitely, who I grew up with most, has like a really thick accent, you know, and like growing up, I almost like masked that accent without realizing it.
For sure.
And like sometimes I'll hear it and then I'm like, what the hell? Where's that from? You know?
Yeah.
And I just feel like, and then like you were saying, like you have to like push yourself to like speak Spanish because I'm like, that's not really me. But then like speaking English isn't really me, but it's what I have done since I was young. So it's what I'm comfortable with.
They're both you. I think that it's more common than you'd expect for people like second generation or what are we? First generation Americans.
'Cause both of our parents are immigrants.
Yeah.
Right?
So first generation Americans, a lot of us have to reclaim our culture, and we fucking should too.
Yeah.
You know, because we really should. Because our parents, out of wanting what's best for us, wanted to give us like the American dream. You know, and it's like these certain things, and like nobody should be ashamed to be who they are, regardless of the culture. You know, but it's just interesting, like. I don't know. I do definitely feel what you're talking about, especially like, yeah, like reclaiming your culture.
Yeah.
It's a difficult thing to do, you know? Like,
dude.
I don't know, leaning into it and like, because it's a part of you for sure.
Yeah, it's really, and I'm gonna use, this might not be the correct word, but I feel like it's so vulnerable to be like, yes, even though I grew up in Utah and I speak Spanish probably 70% compared to my 100% of English, you know, I'm like, yes, I am a Hispanic person. And this is like who I am, even though my name is like Sean Luke.
Well, you feel like you get typecasted or like sort of put into a role, you know?
Yeah.
You know how fucking annoying it is when people ask me my name and I'm like, Javier. And then somebody's like, wait, what? And then I'm like, Javier, you know?
Yeah.
And like how often I have to say, like almost all the time, I still say my name like the white way.
Yeah.
Because it's just like streamlined.
Yeah.
It's easier. It's fucking easier, you know? And it sucks because I think about it sometimes and I'm like ashamed that I have to say my name the white way a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But also that shame doesn't belong to me and it's not my fault, you know?
Yeah.
That, you know, and more people should just be like actively listening, but your brain jumps to the thing you understand quickest. So I'm not going to judge other people just because when I say Javi, someone turns to me and they're like, Harvey? And I'm like, fuck it. Okay.
Yeah. Like,
you know?
yeah, Harvey, whatever.
But it is annoying. And it's so like, I think about it a lot, like the sort of disconnect to my culture because I had to run with society. Sometimes, you know, like you have to put away this thing that's so beautiful and valuable.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I think that's why when I get the opportunity to, I lean into being Mexican. I lean into being, you know, Hispanic because it's fucking dope.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so weird. It's like, and it's like sometimes when I'm talking to my grandpa, like he speaks terrible English, but he still talks to me in English because growing up, that's all I knew. But I don't want to be like, hey, I've like been learning Spanish, you know. So, like I started learning Spanish when I was like 14 because my mom made me or whatever.
Dude,
know?
I bet it would make them so happy.
But like I'll try. It's like that's what I think. But then at the same time, it's like kind of weird because he's just like, okay, You know, I don't
Really?
know. It's like such a weird dynamic, but it's like something that I'm still trying to figure out because I feel like that's something that like
Maybe he feels like
he feels weird.
he feels weird about his English when you try to talk to him in Spanish. Because my dad, who I don't see very often, I went to like a restaurant with him.
Oh,
And since I
yeah.
don't see him very often, I was like not sure if he needed help ordering
Yeah.
because I didn't know where his English was at. And so I was like sort of ordering for him, but I was also trying to be cool and like polite.
Yeah.
And he was like, kind of looked at me and he's like, I got this.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
And then he started ordering, but then he'd still look at the menu, and then he'd look at me and he's like, ¿Qué dijo? ¿Cómo se dice? So he'd still do that every now
Yeah.
and then, but he wanted to show me that he has good English, and he does, you know. So it's just interesting.
Damn, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
I don't know. It's just like he's also trying to impress me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, broken English is a sign of intelligence. It's so hard to learn another language. It's ridiculous.
Dude, I have been trying really hard, and I feel like my Spanish is finally at a point where I can like confidently be like, yeah, I can speak Spanish to anybody and have any conversation. Where it took a long time to get there. But now I'm trying to learn Japanese again. And I bought all these books and I've been doing all these things, and I have a regular at work. I'm like, she's speaking Japanese to her little kid, and I was like, "Oh, you speak Japanese?" She was like, "Oh." She was like, "Yeah, why?" I was like, "I'm trying to study it right now." She's like, "Oh, yeah." And then she started talking to me in Japanese, and then I was like, I told her, I said, "I don't speak Japanese in Japanese." I said that.
Yeah.
And then she
How do you
goes,
say that?
I said, "Nihongo hanashimasen." And then she goes, "Oh, you're so good. You conjugated it." And she's like, "I'm going to start I'm going to start coming and talking to you in Japanese." And I was like, "Please, God." So I ordered more books, and I'm like on it now because I'm like so scared. But learning languages is really hard.
Dude,
I like
since Spanish is natural to me, I thought French would be easy. But since I know Spanish conversationally, I realized I don't know shit about Spanish grammatically. And conjugating in French, even though it's sort of similar, I'm like, this is so fucking crazy hard. Like, I just don't,
See, that's like the opposite for me because I learned Spanish grammatically because my mom was a Spanish teacher, right? So she taught me Spanish in like the way of conjugations and like tenses and like understanding the grammar of it rather than just like talking to me in it.
For sure.
And in Japanese, it's like the same thing where like I said hanashimasen, which means, and this is like, if you speak Japanese and you're listening to this for some reason, I'm probably so wrong about this, but like hanashimas is the verb, but hanashimasen is like, I don't do that conjugation. And the only reason I feel confident in understanding that is because of my like Spanish grammar. So when she was like, "Oh, that's so good," was because I actually conjugated it correctly.
Yeah.
But like, little does she know, I know nothing but conjugation. Yeah.
Oh, that's
so like, I know
funny.
no vocabulary.
Right.
And like, if she said anything to me, it would go over my head unless it was like the 100 words I know, you know.
Sure.
But like, I can conjugate them because it's like what's natural to me, I guess.
Right.
It's like the opposite for what you.
Well, then it sounds like you're headed the right way.
Thanks. But yeah, I don't know. Anyways, this is a pretty long thing. It's probably gonna take a while to figure it out, but
probably a long time to edit and work it out.
Anyways, I'm gonna end it now.
Well, you gotta end it a certain way.
Oh.
You need a tradition. Well, your Sean Mena Kipper Snack finishing touch.
It was gonna be the what is your life?
Dude, we just went crazy.
We just kept going.
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll figure out a tradition eventually. But this is the end of the Kipper Snack podcast. Number 1. This is Javi. We don't know if Javi's gonna be on more episodes or not. Whatever he wants to do, he can do.
Hell yeah.
He might co-host some episodes. He might not. You never know. But thanks for listening to the very first ever podcast. If you made it this far, send me a DM and I'll send you a nice letter.
Hell yeah.
But anyways, thanks for listening. Goodbye.